This week on Jerusalem Dateline, the best of times and the worst of times as Israel signs historic agreements with the UAE and Bahrain, then enters the high holy days as a new coronavirus lockdown kicks in. And Israelis' Iron Dome anti-rocket system in a new documentary, plus Rosh HaShanah, the shofar-sounding holiday. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl, filling in for Chris Mitchell. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu signed historic peace deals with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain on the White House lawn. CBN's White House correspondent Ben Kennedy brings us that story from Washington.
President Trump calls the accord peace in the Middle East without blood on the sand. This is also a diplomatic win for the commander-in-chief ahead of the November election.
We're here this afternoon to change the course of history.
A historic peace deal dubbed the Abraham Accord, signed on the South Lawn, establishing full diplomatic ties between the key allies of the U.S.
Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain will establish embassies, exchange ambassadors, and begin to cooperate and work together so strongly.
Let me start by conveying the best regards of the UAE people.
The UAE became the first Gulf state and third Arab nation to agree to diplomatic ties with Israel. Bahrain signed on last week.
This day is a pivot of history. It heralds a new dawn of peace. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have prayed for peace. For decades, the Jewish state has prayed for peace.
We can see before us a golden opportunity for peace, security, and prosperity for our region.
The agreement should add security to the region and is seen as a major step towards peace in the Middle East.
To be Jewish, to be an evangelical, and to be there watching it unfold, this is prophetic, it's historic, it's exciting, and it's personal for me. I've had two sons serve in the Israeli military, and I want them to have peace.
Under the agreement, Israel agrees to stop annexation plans for part of the West Bank, land sought by Palestinians for a future state. Israeli military says 2 people were injured after rockets were fired from Gaza during the peace signing in D.C. The Palestinians condemn the deal and consider it a stab in the back.
We want the Palestinians to come to the table, but we can't want peace more than they do. And so to date, they have reacted badly to our proposal. They've reacted badly to our peace agreements with the United Arab Emirates and with Bahrain. And it's a huge mistake by the leadership.
Now President Trump says there are at least 5 other countries in the Middle East that are tired of fighting and ready to join the circle of peace. If Saudi Arabia were to follow suit, this would have major implications for Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
Back in the Middle East, Israelis welcomed the peace deals and say they look forward to visiting the Gulf states. The flags of the U.S., Israel, UAE, and Bahrain were projected on Jerusalem's Old City walls as leaders in Washington signed the deals. At a reception for diplomats, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin thanked the Gulf state leaders for their courage and invited them to Jerusalem.
This is a true example of breaking down borders and overcoming division.
Rivlin said together they could lead the Middle East down a new path of hope, peace, tolerance, and cooperation.
I hope that many more Arab and Muslim countries follow your lead, and that we see a new era of peace among nations. P2P, people to people, peace to peace. I hope as well that this spirit of cooperation will help us to build a future of trust with our Palestinians neighbors.
But that doesn't look promising. During the speech of the UAE's foreign minister, rockets fired from Gaza rained down on the southern Israeli cities of Ashkelon and Ashdod. One rocket fell in the commercial center of Ashdod, wounding 3 Israelis. terrorists continued launching rockets at Israel, some of which were intercepted by Iron Dome. In response, IDF jets hit Hamas military targets in Gaza. Hamas said the peace deal was working against national Arab security and fueling disagreements in the region. Meanwhile, Israelis at Jerusalem's open-air market told CBN News they were both cautious and excited about the deals.
It's very good that Arabs and Jewish, everybody, Muslims, Jewish, everybody connected and try to make this world a better place.
It's in good time right now. The economics of Israel is really in low. They can help us a lot.
One of the mysteries has been exactly what Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to regarding extending Israeli sovereignty over biblical Judea and Samaria.
As long as they don't demand from us to stop building the settlements, that they will pressure the Prime Minister to make all kinds of concessions with the settlements, and then it would be, in my opinion, a worthless agreement.
Still, many said they wanted to visit the Gulf states and looked forward to good things ahead.
Abu Dhabi is going to be the first stop.
Me Dubai.
Is Dubai, I'm Abu Dhabi.
In the first flight.
Israelis will be able to fly to Dubai without having to use a second passport. But more importantly, I think the general sense that peace is inevitable in the region and that everyone who is interested in advancing their countries and their societies need to get on the peace train.
Rabbi Mark Schneier has been visiting the Gulf states for years, meeting with the leaders of those countries. He spoke to CBN News ahead of the signing and told us a bit about how the deals unfolded.
First, you have this raging pandemic. It's only a natural alliance for the Gulf and for Israel to combat this virus together. You have the existentialist threat that continues to come from Iran, wanting to strengthen relations with the U.S. administration, and both the UAE and Bahrain were very concerned about the possibility of annexation on the part of the State of Israel. That was one of the contributing factors that created the tension to make this deal. When the King of Bahrain said to me time and time again that our only guarantee for a strong, moderate Arab presence in the Gulf is a strong Israel, the Gulf is looking to the State of Israel to be its defender, to be its protector. The momentum in the Gulf is to normalize ties, to make peace with Israel. It's a win-win, both for the Gulf and for the State of Israel.
From the best of times to what some might consider the worst of times. From the high of the historic agreements with two Arab countries, Israelis were plunged into a second coronavirus lockdown just hours before the Jewish High Holy Days began. For the first time in its 62-year history, Jerusalem's Great Synagogue is closed for the high holidays.
The reason is a very simple one. The most important criteria in Judaism is the safety, the physical safety of every human being.
And the lockdown is widespread, closing schools, malls, hotels, and restaurants except for delivery. Israel has seen a dramatic rise in the number of new cases to more than 5,000 per day, with more than 1,100 deaths.
Tonight, I want to tell you that I understand well the feeling of confusion, of embarrassment, of concern that many certainly feel. I understand and ask before everything else to apologize for this.
While admitting the lockdown harmed Israelis' ability to celebrate together, President Rivlin encouraged them to be strong and then turned to the government.
We must do everything to restore personal, medical, and economic security to all Israelis.
Meanwhile, police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld says law enforcement is ready to do its part while keeping the peace.
The Israeli National Police have completed security, health and safety measures for the scheduled lockdown. More than 7,000 police officers will take part in blocking different neighborhoods and preventing movements.
Israelis taking care of last-minute needs at Jerusalem's open-air market shared mixed reactions to the lockdown.
We're mad, I'm honest, because in July and August, everything was open, everyone drink a beer, everything they would go to concerts. But in the holidays, when it's supposed to be happy, it's supposed to be, everyone's supposed to be united. It's Rosh HaShanah, it's New Year's of the Jewish, we close everything.
The fact that we are the first Western country to enter a second lockdown It's insane.
I think it's a good idea given our record thus far. We did really, really well when we had a lockdown. Then we relaxed standards and things went from bad to much worse.
Still, some see a spiritual bright side.
Maybe it will bring us all together more. We'll be able to stay home and have a little introspection of ourselves and so forth. And I think that probably next year there'll even be more turnout in the synagogues and the I think it's going to strengthen us in the end.
Coming up, the new documentary about the invisible dome of iron that protects Israeli communities from enemy rocket fire.
Now, for a limited time, you can get 5 of CBN's critically acclaimed documentaries. Experience the rebirth of the modern state of Israel.
The historic bond between the Jewish people and the land of Israel cannot be broken.
Relive the battle for Jerusalem in the Six-Day War.
Jerusalem is yours, forever.
Discover how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
When people need us, we volunteer and we come and help.
Explore the world of Israeli technological innovation.
We're people of dreams. God gives us dreams. And that's really the roots, I think, of much of our innovation.
And understand the biggest land dispute in history.
Many Palestinian Arabs claim that the Jews stole Arab land. But is that the real story?
This exclusive Israel DVD collection can be yours for a gift of $40 or more. Call now or go online to get your Israel DVD bundle today. A new wave of anti-Semitism is sweeping the globe, and the Jewish state faces hostility at every turn. Now is the time for Christians to support Israel. In CBN's free booklet, Why Christians Stand with Israel, you'll discover why Christians support the Jewish state and why we must stand together with the Jewish people. Get your free copy today. Call now or go to cbn.com/standwithisrael.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Israel's Iron Dome has saved countless lives since it was first put into action almost 10 years ago. Now, filmmakers are telling the amazing story of Israel's air defense system in a new documentary series. We've added our own voiceovers to some of the film clips. Take a look.
We're in the M3 district of Sderot. Here with us is Eli Moyal, mayor of Sderot, who came to the site in his slippers. He lives right around here. Eli, what did you hear?
I didn't hear it. I saw it. I saw the shells land, mortar shells land. It was an incredible sight. I called on Prime Minister Arik Sharon and the security cabinet. The answer isn't more shelters. The answer isn't taking cover. The Israeli government must stop the mortar attacks on Sderot.
That's how the search began for a solution to protecting Israel from rockets fired by terrorists.
Imagine a town with over 20,000 citizens. In the middle of nowhere, a shell lands without warning.
The new documentary series Iron Dome follows the development of this unique defensive system that has stopped 90% of the rockets it targeted.
We wanted to explore the story of the making of Iron Dome as a life-saving weapon system. And we found out that the story is much bigger than just an army system.
Creator and producer Nati Dinar says the series goes back to when the rockets started falling.
At the beginning, it was just all kinds of stupid rockets falling, nobody getting hurt. For the first time when there were a death casualty, people understood this threat is not a game. And one person named Danny Gold, who was in the Ministry of Security in charge of research and development, said, okay, we have to tackle this threat.
Dinar said the idea for the documentary started in 2015.
I wanted to meet Danny Gold and understand the story. I thought it was a one-man story, and here's this guy, he has an idea, he starts moving things along, and just like making a film, It's never about the guy having the idea and pushing it forward.
And with more than 100 interviews,
and at a certain point we understood that the story is not about how rockets hit each other in the sky or how you develop them. This is a human story about people living in threat 24/7 and people trying to protect them, whether they are decision makers or engineers. And we eventually said we want to make an historic piece, but told in a personal way.
In 2006, Defense Minister Amir Peretz lived in Sderot, Israel's most targeted city.
Anyone who saw the damage caused by the Qassam rocket this morning at the Amit school in Sderot found it hard to describe the miracle.
Naturally, my house was the most common target. For Hamas, striking my house was a strategic decision. A picture of the Israeli defense minister's house being hit by a Hamas missile would be a great victory for them. One day, a missile landed a few meters from my house. A neighbor from the next street who happened to be there was killed. And my bodyguard, he was patrolling at the time. Both of his legs were blown off. I want you to know that your father is a hero of both Sderot and the State of Israel, and we won't pass over his death as if nothing happened. I don't think you did anything to prevent it, and my heart is broken.
The situation was so bad. We didn't have any solution against those rockets. Not Israel and no any country in the world, including the United States.
Around that same time, engineers and technicians at Rafael Advanced Defense Systems began work on the Iron Dome.
We decided to start to try to develop a system which we can intercept rocket during the trajectory in the air. It was almost impossible. But we understood that we don't have any other choice in Israel.
Born in Tel Aviv to Holocaust survivors, Levine brought a personal connection to his work on the system.
For me, it's, to protect everyone in Israel. It's let's say, I have it from the childhood.
First, we launch the target. The target's in the air. We start the countdown. The announcer, a guy named Dory, starts counting. Smoke comes out of the launcher. A missile blasts into the air. People are already applauding. I say, folks, there hasn't even been an interception yet. There are a few seconds of panic. Everyone's sitting there, glued to the computer.
Cheers for a defense system continuing to save Israeli lives today. The Iron Dome series can be viewed on Izzy, an international streaming platform some are calling the Netflix of Israel. Up next, Rosh HaShanah, the traditional Jewish New Year, and biblical Feast of Trumpets.
CBN Films presents
It's a very corrupt period in Jewish history at this time.
Written in Stone, Jesus of Nazareth.
The emotion is one thing, but the scientific truth is something else.
The life of Jesus changed the entire world.
Jesus walked on this particular street.
But what does archaeology say about where he lived his life?
It's an authentic location in the life of Jesus.
Join Gordon Robertson and unearth remarkable discoveries.
Is it really the place where Jesus spent his last night on earth?
Explore where Jesus traveled.
Jesus went from one Jewish place to another Jewish place.
Where he performed miracles.
And he raised the little girl from the dead.
And where he was tried by Pontius Pilate.
Tradition is wrong.
Get Written in Stone, Jesus of Nazareth. For a gift of any dollar amount, call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/writteninstone.
That changes everything.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us Regent.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Israelis entered the biblical holidays with Rosh HaShanah, celebrated as the traditional New Year. But there's more to this season, and the Bible points the way. Take a look at a story we did a few years ago about the biblical trumpet, the shofar.
Rosh Hashanah literally means head of the year, the new year. But biblically, it's much more than that. In the book of Leviticus, it's called Yom Teruah, the day of the blowing of trumpets, or ram's horn, the judgment day.
The only commandment during Rosh Hashanah is actually to hear the sound of the shofar. And so everybody gathering in the synagogue to hear the sound of the shofar. It's something that people connect to their soul, to hear the sound of the shofar.
The piercing sound of the shofar is meant to remind the hearers to repent of their sins and to make things right with their brothers and sisters. The rabbis say that reconciliation with God and man confounds the enemy.
A shofar is a musical instrument made from a horn. This is the oldest musical instrument. And the Jewish Orthodox who have a committee to hear the sound of the shofar during New Year, our Judgment Day.
As part of a two-family business, Eli Ribach is a third-generation shofar maker.
The process is grinding, polishing, then we open a mouthpiece. This is quick, but it's a lot of experience and a lot of hand work because each horn is a different size, different thickness, so you have to be experienced to make a good shofar.
The ram's horn is used as the traditional shofar because when Abraham showed his willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac, God provided a ram to be used in his place.
Actually, all type of horns are kosher except of a cow.
That's because the Jewish people don't want to remind God of the time Israel worshipped the golden calf in the wilderness. Besides the distinctive tones of the different horns, there are 3 different blasts sounded. The shofar is blown in synagogues and at the Western Wall each morning for a month before the holiday to give plenty of time for repentance.
You and I both know that we need a lot of reminders in our daily life to repent, to think of the things of God. It's like an alarm clock for the soul.
Ribach says it's not just Jewish people who blow the shofar.
We sell the shofar all over the world. We sell it to Jewish, to Christian, Messianic people, evangelist people.
Rosh Hashanah is the feast of the 7th month, but in Jewish tradition represents the new year.
At the coronation of the kings of Israel, the shofars would blow. They would announce the new king, or they would announce the coming of the king. Oftentimes in the Christian world, shofars are blown throughout the entire year. But in Judaism and in Jewish practice, those shofars are only blown for a very limited time throughout the year, during this time, the month of Elul and Rosh Hashanah.
Boaz Michael, founder of First Fruits of Zion, says that's a foreshadow for those who believe in Yeshua, Jesus.
And they tell us something, they're speaking to us, they're reminding us of something. And one of the things they're reminding us of is the creation of the world, the coming of the King Messiah one day at this time, the coronation of his kingdom here on earth. This is what the shofar is to remind us of, and it speaks to us every day when we hear that sound.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, the special Slichot prayers asking for forgiveness.
Roman soldiers destroy the Second Temple of Jerusalem. Centuries of eyewitnesses say the temple treasures survived. But where are they?
They went from Jerusalem to Rome, Rome to Carthage, Carthage to Byzantium.
Historians are silent about what happened to it next.
CBN Documentaries presents the worldwide release of Treasures of the Second Temple.
So does it still exist today?
A story of mystery.
Where is it?
Calamity.
Most of the victims were butchered.
And destiny.
The possibility to dig is impossible.
Get your copy of Treasures of the Second Temple. Yours for a gift of any amount to CBN Documentaries.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Before COVID-19 hit, up to 50,000 people would come each night to the Western Wall in the days leading up to Yom Kippur to pray special prayers asking for forgiveness. Take a look at what these slichot prayers look like when there's no lockdown. It's an example of what you can see on our social media platforms. It's a powerful reminder to pray for Israel in this season, especially with the new coronavirus lockdown. That's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. To all our Jewish viewers, we say, Shana Tova, a Happy New Year. I'm Julie Stahl. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.